I'm going to share something that turned my work life upside down, and I'm still not sure if I was crazy or if everyone else just missed the point. My name's Harper, I'm 28, and this whole mess began when I tried to protect myself and ended up the office outcast. I work at a mid-sized firm handling data entry and client support. It's not glamorous, but it covers my rent and my student loans. There's this guy, Lucas, who's been at the company a bit longer than me, maybe 3 years before I joined. We're in different departments, but our desks are on the same floor. Lucas is the kind of person everyone loves, always greeting people with a smile, holding the elevator, asking about your weekend plans. He's got this knack for remembering details about you, making small talk by the water cooler feel personal. Honestly, I thought we had a solid work friendship. We'd grab lunch together now and then, usually with others, and he'd recall little things I'd mentioned, like my favorite coffee shop or a movie I'd raved about. It made the daily grind less dull. I'll admit, there were moments I wondered if he saw our friendship as something more. But I kept things professional. Dating a coworker is a recipe for disaster, and I needed this job. Still, nobody seems to get what made this situation so complicated. Lucas had this way of pushing boundaries just enough to make me uneasy. He'd stand a little too close during conversations, or rest his hand on my arm when emphasizing a point. It wasn't blatant, but it felt off. I didn't want to overreact or label it harassment, especially since he was so well liked. Everyone saw him as the office saint, helpful, charming, dependable. So I brushed it off, telling myself I was reading too much into it. We kept up our usual routine, lunch chats, casual banter, but I started noticing things. He'd offer to help with my projects unprompted, recall details from talks we'd had weeks prior, or glance at me across the room with an intensity that felt too personal. I got this sinking feeling he might be seeing our friendship as something romantic, but I didn't call it out. I didn't want to make things weird or assume the worst. Plus, part of me enjoyed the attention. Who doesn't like someone at work who actually listens? But there was this nagging sense I was unintentionally encouraging something I didn't want. I wasn't doing anything wrong, just matching his friendliness, but I worried I was sending mixed signals. What was I supposed to do? Ice out the office's golden boy for no clear reason? People would have thought I was unhinged. So I kept things friendly but cautious, mentioning dates I was going on, or pulling others into our talks to keep it less intimate. Lucas didn't seem to notice, or maybe he ignored it because he liked our dynamic. Things felt manageable until one day when everything spiraled out of control. It happened during a lunch break in the office break room, a cramped space with a few tables and a microwave. A group of us usually eat there to save money. I was at our usual table with Lucas and a couple others, munching on a chicken wrap I'd brought from home, when I took too big a bite and choked. Like, really choked. I couldn't breathe, my throat seized up, and I started panicking, clawing at my neck and making these awful, gasping sounds. Everyone froze, unsure what to do. Then Lucas sprang up, saying he'd taken a first aid course and knew the Heimlich maneuver. Here's what people don't get. I was already uneasy about how close Lucas had been getting, and suddenly he's behind me, his arms wrapped around my waist, his body pressed tight against mine. I know he was trying to save me. I'm not clueless, but in that moment, terrified and gasping, his closeness felt wrong. His chest was against my back, and I could feel too much of him during those compressions. I know it wasn't on purpose, that he was just trying to help, but it felt invasive in a way I can't fully explain. Picture being wary of someone's boundaries, then having them touch you in this intensely personal way, even if it's to save your life, with everyone watching. The Heimlich worked. The food dislodged. I could breathe again, and the table erupted in cheers. Lucas kept asking if I was okay, offering water, but I was so overwhelmed, embarrassed, confused, shaken, that I couldn't meet his eyes. I mumbled something, bolted to the restroom, and locked myself in a stall. My hands were trembling. I kept replaying it. His grip, his body against mine, the way it lingered in my mind. Logically, I knew he'd saved me, but it felt violating. Was he enjoying it too much? Was I paranoid because I'd already been on edge about him? I stayed in there for 15 minutes, trying to sort out my feelings and wondering if my instincts were warning me of something real. When I came out, Lucas tried to check on me again, asking if I wanted to talk, but I brushed him off and went to my desk. I couldn't focus for the rest of the day, stuck in a loop of questioning whether I should say something or let it go. I felt guilty doubting him when he'd saved my life, but my gut screamed that something was off. That night, I called my best friend Mia, who's great at untangling my thoughts. I told her how his closeness felt wrong, how I'd been uneasy about him for a while. She said it sounded like he might have leaned into the moment more than necessary, that even life-saving acts don't erase your right to feel safe. She pointed out a trained person might have been more clinical, and maybe he lingered too long. Her words made my doubts feel less crazy. I barely slept, torn between wondering if I was overreacting or if my instincts were right. The next day, Lucas kept checking on me, which should have been kind, but felt like he was trying to cement some bond from the incident. During a coffee break, he cornered me by the water cooler, talking in this soft, intimate tone about how glad he was to help. It felt like he was framing it as our moment, and I knew I had to act. I decided to report it to HR, not to ruin him, but to protect myself and document it in case his behavior escalated. I needed to trust my gut. That afternoon, I went to HR, nervous I'd sound irrational. I explained that during the choking incident, Lucas's closeness felt inappropriate, that I felt his body against mine in a way that made me uneasy. I clarified I knew he was helping, but it felt invasive, and I was worried about his intentions given his past behavior. Leaning too close, unnecessary touches, intense stares. The HR rep took notes, asked about our history, and said they'd investigate, interviewing witnesses, and Lucas. I begged for confidentiality, but she said they had to follow protocol. My stomach churned, knowing people would think I was nuts for reporting a hero. The next week was hell. Words spread fast. HR is supposed to be discreet, but offices talk. I felt eyes on me, heard whispers. I learned Lucas had been questioned, and he looked hurt and confused when we passed in the halls. Part of me felt awful. He probably didn't expect this after saving me, but I kept reminding myself I was protecting my boundaries. Mia reassured me I did the right thing, that guys like him often rely on women staying silent. HR interviewed everyone at the lunch table, and their reactions said it all. One coworker, Emily, gave me a dirty look post-interview. I overheard her in the break room saying I was blowing it out of proportion, that Lucas was just being a hero. She didn't feel his body pressed against her, didn't know the history of my discomfort. The office vibe shifted. People who used to chat with me grew distant. My work friends acted cautious, like I might report them next. It was infuriating. Nobody cared about my side, just the narrative of guy saves girl, girl betrays guy. Lucas became the office martyr, with people praising his selflessness and muttering how unfair it was he was under scrutiny. I wanted to scream that being a good guy doesn't mean ignoring someone's boundaries, but I knew it'd make me look worse. After a week, HR called me in. They found no evidence of intentional misconduct, but would talk to Lucas about boundaries. They suggested I transfer to another floor if I felt uncomfortable. I was floored. They were implying I should uproot my work life when I was the one who felt violated. It felt like they just wanted the issue to vanish. Post-investigation, things got worse. Lucas went from warm and chatty to treating me like I didn't exist. If I entered the break room, he'd leave. In the elevator, he'd stare at his phone, ignoring my presence. If I said good morning, he'd give a curt nod and walk away. It hurt more than his over-friendliness had. Before, at least, I felt human. The office followed his lead. Coworkers stopped inviting me to lunches or happy hours. Conversations died when I approached. I overheard plans for drinks or birthdays, but I was excluded. Even my friends grew distant, afraid to be associated with the troublemaker. The isolation crushed me. I started doubting myself, wondering if I'd misread everything. Maybe Lucas was just saving me, and I'd turned it into something it wasn't. Maybe his earlier behavior was just friendly, and I'd projected my fears. The doubt gnawed at me, especially watching him laugh with others while I ate alone. I tried talking to Emily, hoping she'd help me explain to others, but she brushed me off, saying I shouldn't have thrown Lucas under the bus, and suggested I apologize publicly. But I couldn't apologize for how I felt in my own body, even if I was questioning myself. After weeks of this, I couldn't take the hostility. I decided to confront Lucas directly, hoping to clear the air. I caught him at his desk after hours and said I wanted to talk. maybe find a way to coexist professionally. His face was stone cold, nothing like the warm guy I'd known. He said he understood I did what I felt was right, but he had to protect himself from future accusations. He'd never risk a personal connection with me again, fearing I'd misinterpret something else. He said the damage to his reputation was done, and he'd only interact with me for work, with witnesses present. Then he said something that gutted me. He'd learned to think twice before helping anyone, because good intentions could be twisted. It made me feel like I'd not only ruined our friendship, but made him wary of helping others. I tried explaining I was scared and confused, that maybe I overreacted, but he cut me off, saying it didn't matter. The conversation ended with him walking away, leaving me feeling like I'd lost everything. The next few months were unbearable. Lucas stuck to emails, avoiding face-to-face contact. Coworkers kept me at arm's length, and I started eating lunch in my car to escape the tension. I applied for transfers, but the incident's shadow followed me. No team wanted the drama. I began job hunting, dreading explaining why I was leaving so soon without sounding like a problem employee. The kicker? I heard Lucas got promoted to team lead, with everyone praising his integrity. Meanwhile, I was scrambling to rebuild my career, questioning if I'd been wrong all along. I still don't know if I was right to report him. Maybe I overreacted. Maybe I ruined a good person's reputation. But I know speaking up cost me my work friends, my peace, and my place in that office. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I'd just said, "Thank you," and moved on. Would I still have a friend, a community, a job I didn't dread? This experience taught me how quickly standing up for yourself can make you the villain, and how hard it is to trust your gut when the world tells you you're wrong. What do you think? Was I right to speak up, or did I misread it all? Have you ever faced a moment where standing up for yourself backfired? Share your thoughts below. If this story hit home, join our community for more real, raw stories about navigating life's toughest choices.